Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include how the Path of Exile devs are changing their approach to the next expansion, the Diablo 2 exploit that had the new Sunder Charms dropping like crazy, some Diablo 4 story clues and beta update, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, NordVPN. A VPN is an important tool for keeping your data secure and encrypted on the internet, and I don't dare connect to public Wi-Fi without first enabling my VPN. Be it on a phone or a laptop, in an airport or a cafe, I turn on my protection before connecting to that public Wi-Fi. You never know who may be snooping around trying to steal your personal data, because that Wi-Fi network named Cafe Free Wi-Fi can actually be anyone using their phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot to trick you into connecting to them. Turn on your VPN, and now your data is getting encrypted before going out. You can also use a VPN to get around region blocked content by picking a server in a different country, and NordVPN has over 5,400 servers in 59 different countries. And it's so user-friendly that you're basically one click away from hiding your IP or browsing the web from a different country. And one account lets you connect up to 6 devices, be they computers, phones, tablets, you name it. So take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. Right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount plus 4 additional months for free when you go to nordvpn.com/Riker. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/RHYKKER, or click the link in the description below. Starting with a quick follow-up to last week's story about the new Need for Speed Unbounded game. We spoke about the heavily stylized visuals the game has, which includes comic book-style special effects. Well, the devs have confirmed that you can choose to disable those comic book effects. I'm a big fan of player choice, so kudos to the devs for giving players the choice. In another quick story, God of War Ragnarok has gone gold. What does that mean? Well, it means the game is definitely launching November 9th and will not be delayed. Going gold is a term that originated from when a gold master disc would be made. Many years ago. This is the final version of the game that would be sent out for mass duplication. We've moved away from printing CDs now, but the term stuck around to basically mean that the game is completed and ready for distribution. In some No Man's Sky news, the game dropped last week its 4.0 Waypoint update, which includes an overhaul of fundamental gameplay elements, including custom game modes, inventory size, and more. The story of this game's development is incredible. It's one of the rare games to recover from a botched launch and thrive thanks to the devs continually putting love into it until it finally reached player expectations. We're now 6 years post-launch and countless free updates later, and now the game has mostly positive reviews on Steam after launching to overwhelmingly negative Steam reviews. On to another quick story. The 2020 PlayStation game Spider-Man Miles Morales now has a PC release date, November 18th. You can get it on Steam or the Epic Games Store. As of summer 2021, the game had sold 6.5 million copies and was the 6th best-selling game of 2021. In other news, we got a release date trailer for Choo-Choo Charles, an open-world horror game in which you ride and upgrade a train and use it to fight an evil spider train named Charles. Well, I can honestly say that I have never seen a game like this before, and the gameplay loop seems oddly compelling. Choo-Choo Charles was made by one person and releases December 9th. In some quick Elden Ring news, a new patch has added a separate damage scaling for PvP. Single player and co-op play is unaffected, but for PvP, weapons, skills, spells, and incantations will scale and act differently against other players. This is great news and I believe is just generally good game design. It's incredibly difficult to balance for both PvP and PvE. In general, one experience or the other suffers when devs try to do this. Here are skills that are useless in PvP because we're balancing more for PvE, or here are skills that are nerfed in PvE because they'd be too strong in PvP. Now the patch didn't just work on PvP scaling, however, it also brought a number of other changes like making more pure mage builds viable, buffing beast incantations, tons of spell buffs in general, among a number of other PvE buffs. Full patch notes in the description below. In some board game news, Hey, this is a weekly gaming news wrap-up. We never specified it had to be video games. Oathsworn Into the Deepwoods will be starting its second Kickstarter campaign on October 18th. Now, this is a board game that already had a successful Kickstarter that raised nearly $2 million. They've sent out orders to all their backers, and now they're gearing up for a second production run. Oathsworn Into the Deepwoods is a grand co-op dark fantasy board game for 1 to 4 players. You pick a character, build a party, then you go on quests to solve mysteries, kill monsters, find loot, and level up. It's a little bit of choose your own adventure, it's a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons without need for a dungeon master, and it has absolutely gorgeous minis. We've been playing the game and enjoying it quite a bit. My fiance and I own dozens of board games, and Oathsworn has rapidly become one of our favorites. So if you're into this kind of game, check out the Kickstarter. Link in the description. In some Path of Exile news, the devs have released a blog post on what to expect from them over the coming months. In it, they detail that they've decided to move back the 3.20 expansion from late November to early December to better align with the holiday period. And they're going to be using the extra time to get a head start on 3.21. Leading up to the 3.20 expansion, the devs will share a series of balanced manifestos rather than just one, covering even more topics than usual, in the interest of providing better communication and transparency. This is pretty huge and seems to be in response to the community backlash around failing to properly communicate the drop changes from the current expansion. Then toward the end of the Calandra League, the devs intend to host a series of short events starting on November 4th. There'll be between 2 to 4 events that will consist of a variety of twists on regular PoE gameplay, with tons of prizes up for grabs. The devs have also given an official name to the hard mode they've been talking about for about a year now. It'll be called Ruthless, and it's an additional optional game mode that you can opt into when creating a character that will result in extreme item scarcity, among other difficulty changes. We'll get a full reveal of Ruthless in November. In other PoE news, PoE.trade will be shutting down on October 25th. End of an era. PoE.trade, or PoE.xyz as it was formerly known, was the main website used by the community for trading for years, before the devs made their own trade website a couple years back. Farewell, PoE Trade. You served the community well. In some Torchlight Infinite news, the game's open beta began this week on both PC through Steam and on mobile. The devs continue to solicit feedback ahead of the game's full launch. They've already acted upon closed beta feedback to make some improvements to the monetization system following player complaints, and fingers crossed that they'll keep listening and continue to make more changes in that regard, because the core gameplay is fun, the systems are solid, the main thing anyone has to complain about is the monetization. The open beta currently has 6 heroes to choose from, 24 talent trees, more than 250 skills, and more than 250 legendary items. There's 3 main story chapters, 8 difficulty levels in a Path of Exile style endgame similar to Maps and the Atlas, as well as their first seasonal theme. We also got the official cinematic trailer for the game, link to that in the description below, which seems to depict the struggles of a typical Dungeons & Dragons adventuring party.
When will you learn to follow the plan?
And they also released a really fun video featuring David Brevik, their newest consulting producer and one of the original creators of Diablo, in which he talks about the origins of the ARPG and promotes Torchlight Infinite, while subtly conveying his disappointment in his, cat.
Oh, Diablo, what have you done?
In some Diablo 4 news, Blizzard has posted some new key art that features front and center Inarius. In the background, we have the Jailer from World of Warcraft, we have Kerrigan on the left to represent StarCraft, the Elite Tauren Chieftain to represent Heroes of the Storm on the right, Jaina Proudmoore with some Hearthstone cards on the lower right, Sojourn to represent Overwatch on the lower left, and our boy Inarius representing Diablo. The key art is in the style of the usual key art that Blizzard makes for BlizzCon. This could have in theory been made in advance before this year's BlizzCon was cancelled. The fact that Inarius is front and center representing Diablo solidifies that he will have a major role to play in Diablo 4. We already strongly suspected that he would have a presence in the game, since he had this concept art made for him and he also appeared in a flash in the Diablo 4 reveal cinematic. This piece of art was created by Will Murray, who also did the key art for many past BlizzCons. He did the art for BlizzCon Line in 2021, featuring Lilith as our Diablo representative, BlizzCon 2019, since BlizzCon 2020 was skipped due to COVID, which had a Barbarian represent Diablo, since Diablo 4 was revealed at this BlizzCon, and so they couldn't give it away with Lilith in the artwork, since this key art is released ahead of BlizzCon. BlizzCon 2018, which had Diablo representing Diablo. BlizzCon 2017, which had the D3 Necromancer representing Diablo. The Necro was released in 2017, for reference, after being revealed at BlizzCon 2016. And while this key art seems like it was initially made for BlizzCon, it's currently being used for Lightbox Expo, which takes place from October 14th to 16th. Lightbox Expo is a celebration of artists and creators behind popular games, films, TV shows, anime, and illustrations. Now, if you're wondering who Inarius is, he's not Imperius. The short version is that Lilith and Inarius are the mother and father of humanity. They're divorced now, and last we saw from Inarius, he was chained up in hell. For more details on Inarius, you can check out my Diablo lore video. But given Lilith has a clearly prominent role in Diablo 4, it's no surprise that Inarius will also play a big part. In some other quick Diablo 4 news, multiple updates to the Diablo 4 vendor build placed on Blizzard's content delivery network have been observed this week. Now, it should be noted that this data mining does not give any access to the files, just the names of the builds and when they were uploaded. We know these vendor builds are there for distribution outside of Blizzard offices, and with the signups for closed beta ending on the 11th earlier this week, it seems the beta is about to start at any time now. In Diablo 2 Resurrected news, we're a bit over a week into Season 2 now, and early on in the season, basically Day 1, an exploit was found that has since been patched out. But basically, players are getting tons of the new Sunder Charms to drop by using the Barbarian's Find Item skill in a terrorized zone, in Hell difficulty. Why was this happening? Well, let's start by explaining how loot drops in Diablo 2. This is going to be a crash course. We're going to simplify some things here, but bear with me. Whenever you kill a monster or open a chest, the game checks the treasure class of the drop. There are roughly 30 different treasure classes in the game, generally of increasing quality. To oversimplify, low-level zones cannot drop high-level treasure classes, and the highest level zones can pretty much drop any treasure class. So again, when you kill a monster, the game randomly determines what treasure class to pull from among the possible treasure classes that the monster in that area can drop. Then, the game determines whether loot actually drops or not. There's something called the no-drop chance. The more players in your game, the lower the no-drop chance. Thus, the more likely you are to get drops. This is why you get more drops when playing in games with more players. Not because drops are doubled or tripled, but because the odds of getting no drops is lowered. Then, assuming you've passed the no drop, the game then randomly selects what item or items drop from the treasure table. So how does this affect Sunder Charms? Well, enter the Barbarian's Find Item skill. This is a skill that lets you target a corpse, and it makes that corpse have a chance to drop loot for a second time, as though you had just killed the monster. The higher level your Find Item skill, the greater the chance of getting loot to drop a second time. If your Find Item check succeeds, you then bypass no drop entirely, and you get a loot drop straight to the treasure table. So what happened with Sunder Charms to cause this exploit? Well, it seems that the devs implemented the Sunder Charms as a separate treasure class that drops from Champion plus monsters in Hell terrorized zones, and then gave these a significant no-drop chance. Basically, if you get a drop from a Hell terrorized Champion monster, it will be a Sunder Charm, but you're not guaranteed to get a drop thanks to no-drop. However, once again, Find Item bypasses no-drop. It just needs to pass its Find Item check. At level 20, for instance, Find Item has a 51% chance to get loot to drop, so half the time you find item on a suitable champion, you get a Sunder Charm, as opposed to whatever drop rates the devs intended. The team patched the exploit by day 2 of the ladder, but by then, some players had already taken advantage to get ridiculous numbers of these charms. Now, post-patch, it seems the Sunder Charms are actually not that rare to find. During PTR testing, the drop rate of the charms was guaranteed in order to help people test them, so we didn't know how rare they would end up being at launch. One concern that I had was that these charms, one of the selling features of Season 2, will be so rare that they would be inaccessible to the average player. But it thankfully seems this is not the case. And lastly, for Diablo 2 news, Carbot released the latest episode in his Diablo 2 series. This time, it's how to play a sorceress. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discussed the master document to fix Diablo 3. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.